That's it. Burn it all down, blow it all up, because there's about to be a bloodbath next on Common Sense. Hello and welcome, all you common sense patriots out there. I'm the common sense conservative, and today we are diving into one of the most absurd things I think I've ever heard a Supreme Court justice say. And we're talking about the First Amendment, and this justice has decided to speak her mind. I don't know. This is the problem when you have DEI hires. And I'm not saying she ain't smart, but when it comes to the Constitution, boy, howdy, does she have something to learn. So let's get into what she had to say, and then I'm going to give you a common sense, logical take on why the First Amendment exists, why our founding fathers wrote it the way they did. And understand something, anybody that knows me out in the real world outside of the YouTube and outside of X knows that I am a constitutional conservative. And I believe the founders wrote it the way they wrote it. They had the God given foresight to write the laws and the amendments the way they did. And this judge has no clue. So let's see what she has to say. So that was the clip where she literally stated, I'm afraid that the First Amendment blocks the government from censoring you. Yes, because that's the way it is written. You see, and this is where I'm going to get into why the First Amendment is so important. Because it is literally the backbone for the entire Constitution, right? So you have the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, right? Freedom of speech is the main reason why we do not have actual insurrections, why we do not have a Haiti situation going on in our capital today. Because people like me, independent creators, uh, people like you out there watching this, people on the left, people on the right, people in the center, people all over the country have a right to A, question their government and their leaders, B, question the government and the policies that it's taking. And this is how we show our dissent. It's a lawful, nonviolent way to say, hey, we are not happy with what you are doing. So either fix it or we will remove you and put somebody else in there who we believe can fix it. And without the First Amendment, that doesn't happen. That doesn't work. That means the government, what she is saying is, oh, well, the government, yes, the government can put its own post out there. Correct. It's called freedom of speech. If you don't like what people on Twitter or Facebook or wherever else, if you don't like what they're saying, then counteract their argument, right? So there's a an analogy I used whenever I used to speak to young students that were on the verge of graduating high school. Some weren't going to college, some were going to college, but there was an analogy that I used, right? Everybody wants the truth, but there can only be one truth. So look at it this way: a house with one clock, you'll always know what time it is. Guaranteed. If there's no clocks on the refrigerator, no clocks on the stove, no clocks on the microwave, no clocks on your phone, you don't have any watches, there's just one clock in this house, you will always know what time it is. But as soon as you introduce a second clock, you'll never know what time it is, because one clock could be a minute or 10 minutes or 5 minutes faster. One to be 10, 15, 20 minutes slower. Whatever the case may be, when you have multiple clocks, you don't know what time it is. So let's apply this to our First Amendment rights. Everybody wants the truth. Everybody wants what's best for us individually and for our communities and for our city and for our state and for our country. That's the truth, right? That's what we want. But how we get to that truth takes multiple different paths. You have people on the right who believe their truth. You have people on the left who believe their truth. You have people in the center who believe their truth. Now we got three truths. With three truths, nobody knows what the actual truth is. You have anarchy. You have chaos. So what did our forefathers say? They said, hey, everybody has a right to freedom of speech, to say what's on their mind, to say what their truth is, and then engage in logical debate with the counterposing argument, and everybody brings their opinions together, everybody brings their facts, everybody brings the receipts, and hopefully through debate, we will find the actual truth. It may be a little bit from the right, it may be a little bit from the left, it may be a little bit from the center, but once we put it all together, we have the truth. Hence, we have one clock in the house. Right now, we got 1 million clocks in the house. Nobody knows what time it is. And this woman here is saying, oh, but the government should be able to suppress that. Well, you know who else suppressed free speech? Hitler suppressed free speech. He said either A, go along with what I'm saying and with the Nazi party, or B, we're going to lock you up, we're going to kill you, we're going to force you into forced labor, and we're going to send you to re-education camps until you believe in what we say. That's what happens when a government takes away an individual citizen's right to freedom of speech. If there are people that say the vaccine isn't great, and there are people that say the vaccine is the best thing since sliced bread, the truth is somewhere in those two arguments. And it may very well be pieces of the two arguments. But the fact that she says, hey, we don't think this is good, that the people on the right are saying the vaccine isn't good, so therefore we, as a government, it's our duty to protect the people from themselves. Well, I hate to tell you this. The people that often want to protect the oppressed are oftentimes the oppressor. You know, it's like you go and set fire to some random house. And while the house is burning and the smoke is boiling up to the sky, you're watching this house burn. You hear a dog in the house. So you quickly run, and you grab a water hose, and you spray down the fire, and you put this fire out, and you save the dog. And then you go to the police and the firemen that showed up, and you're like, I'm a hero. Well, you can't be a hero of a crisis you've created. That's not the way it works. And that's what taking away the First Amendment will do. It will create a crisis that only the government then can solve, And yet they're the ones who created the crisis. Doesn't work that way. In no logical realm of possibility does it work that way. Hey, we created this crisis, but now we're going to save you from the crisis we created. We're the heroes. Praise us. How is that logical? And so I was talking about our forefathers. The very next amendment they put into the Constitution when they were writing this document, they said, hey, freedom of speech, but if we don't give our citizens a way to protect that freedom of speech, then a overreaching, overpowering government can just take it from them. So what do we got to do? Well, everybody has the right to bear arms, protect themselves from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And if you lose as a citizen of this great country, if you lose either one of those rights, either one of those amendments get dissolved and taken away, you'll have true anarchy in this country. Because when we can no longer use our voice to challenge our government, and we can no longer protect those rights individually, then everything else falls apart. The whole house of cards fall apart. And the only thing that is left is violence. And you see that in Haiti today. See that in Ukraine. See that in Russia. You see that in all of these totalitarian dictators, dictatorial governments, that once the individual citizen's right of freedom of speech is taken away, the only thing that's left is violence. Ask the British, circa 1776, what happened when there was taxation without representation. The King of England could have ended the entire Revolutionary War before it even started if he would have allowed the 13 colonies to have a voice in the monarchy, to be able to bring their troubles to the monarchy, to bring their issues and their plights. And he actually gave them a voice on how to govern themselves so far away from the motherland of England. But he didn't. He said, we're the most powerful army on the face of the planet. We have the most powerful navy on the face of the planet. What's a couple 10, 15,000 men in these colonies going to do with their hunting rifles and their deer antler knives? Well, this little thing called the Boston Tea Party happened. That was the start of it. Then they tried to oppress them even harder. And instead of saying, hey, we made a mistake, yes, bring your representatives, let's fix this. Instead, men got together and wrote this little thing called the Declaration of Independence, went out and told all their farmers with their hunting rifles, their deer antler knives, get together, we're forming a militia. And we're going to fight against this oppression. Why? Because we don't have a voice. We tried to talk, they didn't want to listen. They told us our voice didn't matter, and if we kept talking, they're going to hang us in the gallows. They're going to chop our heads off. So they don't want to settle this peacefully. They don't want to settle this civilly. So now the only option left is violence. So Justice Jackson, Supreme Court of the United States, you start overreaching and suppressing the citizens' right to freedom of speech. It's not going to matter how strong, how powerful your military is, because Americans, they're fighters. They're willing to do this peacefully, without conflict. But if the only option left is violence, I hate to see where this country might go. And that's it, everyone. If you like what we're doing here, you want to support us, it's real simple. It's free. Hit that like, subscribe, and follow button. Hit the little bell for notifications. Like I said, I don't want to see any violence. I really don't. You know, we're above that. We're not a third world country. Let's come together. Let's talk about our differences. Bring the facts. Bring the evidence. Argue your viewpoint to the best of your ability. And let's find our house with one clock.